Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple, the show where we talk about everything board game related. I am your host, Jeremy Salinas, and we are looking at another Gen Con 2016 release. It is called Clank by Renegade Games, and to help me walk you through the process of Clank, I have my friend and board game frenemy, Mr. David Waybright.
Hello once again, everyone. I am very excited about this game. This was on our radar a little bit before Gen Con, but now it is squarely in the center for me. This is one of the best games coming out of Gen Con, in my opinion. Not to get ahead of ourselves.
No, this was a totally under-the-radar game. Another one that even just a week prior to the convention, there wasn't even a rule book out about the game. I actually had to ask the publisher directly to get me some information because I wanted to feature it on our Gen Con list. And I'm glad I did, and I'm glad we got a copy. I know it was very limited at Gen Con, and not many reviewers, I think, knew anything about the game. And we were actually talking last night on a Google Hangout with our friend Undead Viking, or Lance Mixter, and he had no idea about the game.
Yeah, it's definitely been flying under the radar, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a deck builder, but it's not the kind of deck builder that you have typically played in the past. Its closest comparison to me would be Trains. Just for the simple fact that Trains also has a board and you're moving around on the board. But this takes on a fantasy theme and has some really unique and different perspectives on how a deck building game can actually play.
Yeah, if you heard deck builder and started to click close on this video, don't, because I've played a lot of deck builders and I think, they've been around long enough and you hear about a new one and you think, it's probably not going to bring anything new to the table.
Yeah.
This one definitely does, and it, in its structure in and of itself, but also the feeling that it brings about while you're playing it is unlike any other deck builder that I've played. There's a feeling of urgency in this game that you just don't feel in another deck builder.
So let's talk about the easy comparisons between this and other deck builders. First, every player starts with the same hand of cards.
Yep.
And you have some movement cards, some ability to buy cards in the future, and then you have Clank, which is your noise that you're making in the dungeon.
That's the big element that, right off the bat that this game brings about is this sound that you're creating, the clank, that brings about some other effects.
So it comes with a game board. And on the game board, let me point out just some areas on here. Everyone starts outside of this giant castle. And you see paths on the board that allow you to go to different areas on the castle that connect rooms or caverns or markets that are deep within the depths of the dungeon.
Yeah.
On the bottom right-hand or left-hand side is a health track for each of the players.
Health track for each player. It starts out empty or with one cube on the base element, and then as you take damage, which we'll explain shortly, you just fill these up. And this is part of where the urgency comes in, because there's a lot going on that does damage to you throughout the game.
Right.
And just to back up for a second, the core goal here is you're trying to dive into the depths, grab an artifact, along with as much treasure as you can get, and then get out of the dungeon. And get out of the castle, in fact.
Why are you trying to get out? Because there is a giant dragon in the depths who will be chasing you once people pick up the treasure or the artifacts from the dragon.
Exactly. The dragon gets angrier and angrier. There's this rage track, if you can see here.
Right.
And every time a player picks up an artifact or a dragon egg, which is hidden, you see some of these treasures throughout. There's minor secrets and major secrets. Some of the minor secrets are dragon eggs. So when you pick up a dragon egg or reveal it or pick up an artifact, the dragon rage meter is going to grow and grow and grow. And we should probably take a moment here to explain how the dragon works.
Yeah, so the dragon, you'll notice that he's going to start on a different position on the board depending upon the number of players that are participating. When the dragon, each of these cards that comes into the market, and there's always 6 cards available, if a dragon icon is revealed after the market is refilled, it's going to activate the dragon. And you'll notice that on the dragon track, there is a number of cubes. That's how many cubes will be pulled out of this really cool embroidered dragon bag.
It's a great bag.
Yeah, so in here are 24 black cubes, which do nothing in the game. They're basically the dragon's rage.
Yeah, they're kind of the neutral cubes. They don't represent a player.
But before any cubes are drawn from this bag, everyone who's created noise will take the cubes off the Clank board and add them into the bag.
Right.
And then whoever the first player is will draw cubes out of there. Any cubes that are drawn for a player are basically health or damage against that player. So you can see as the dragon progressively moves forward by artifacts being stolen from him or the dragon eggs being stolen from him, his rage is going to grow and grow and grow until he reaches his apex, which is 5 cubes being drawn out every time that the dragon is activated.
Right. So early in the game, the first time you go into the bag, oftentimes you're going to pull out black cubes because there's 24 versus maybe 4 other different colors at that point. But as you go, once you take the black cubes out, they're out of the bag, except for some cards that maybe put some back in.
Right.
But the chances increase and increase that you're going to start taking damage. And the cool thematic element is the more clank you make or the more noise you make, the more aware of you the dragon is.
Right.
So the more likely you are to take damage if you've made a lot of noise.
And a lot of the good cards in the game make you utilize Clank or use Clank in order to get their ability. So let's talk a little bit about the cards themselves. Let's first talk about the starting deck, David, and then let's go through the actual cards or some examples of cards.
Yeah, much like most deck builders, the starting deck starts with, there's 10 cards. 6 of them are called Burgle. And these basically give you the currency to buy most of the cards in the game.
Very typical deck building fashion.
Right. There's 3 currencies, really. So the blue currency lets you buy cards or acquire cards. There's 2 cards here that are nothing but Clank.
Yeah. And you have to play all the cards on your turn. So anytime you have a card that has Clank on it, you have to physically play it and create that noise as you're moving.
Yeah, and when you play all the cards in your turn, this doesn't boil down to just laying all your cards down too, because there are some sequence of play combinations you can use with the cards. And then there are the boots, which basically give you the currency that you need to move around the board.
So let's talk about movement real quick. When you move, it's simply from one room to the next room. However, there are some locations in here that have the footprint icon. That means you need 2 movement to get through that path.
Yeah, you need 2 boots to get through that path.
There are some areas that only allow one-way movement.
Correct.
There are areas that require keys that you can only get when you go to the market or get deep enough into the market in order to buy.
Right.
And then there's some areas that have monsters, and that's physically you needing weapons or swords or any kind of damage against those monsters, and that's the other cards that you'll be acquiring in the game.
And you don't start with any of the attack cards, but you can always acquire a mercenary, like most deck builders.
Right.
There's a stack of mercenaries here that give you 1 currency to buy and 2 attacks.
Right.
Then there's the explorer that gives you more currency and some movement, but no attacks. So once you start moving around, for instance, with the monsters, it's really interesting because you still need a boot to get past that through that tunnel.
Right.
But if there's, say, 2 monsters, you can use 2 of your attack icons to get through there. Or if you don't have any attack icons, it doesn't mean you can't go through there. You can still go through there. You just take 2 damage. So it's not just the dragon attacks that are doing damage to you. You can kind of press your luck and make a run for it, but take some damage along the way.
And very Ascension-like, there's also a goblin in the game that's always available for you to beat up on. He just simply gives you coin, which is another currency, which is just flat-out money, which you'll be using to buy things in the market when you get down below the depths of the dungeon or the castle.
Throughout the game, the coins are good for buying the market elements, and that's one of those is the key, which allows you to get through the locked passages. Another one is a stack of crowns, and these are just valuable treasures, although there are some cards in the game that benefit you if you have a crown.
That's right.
Those also appear in descending order. So the first person to take a crown gets a 10-point crown, 9, 8.
Right.
And then there's no more. So if you're in a 4-player game, you wouldn't get one if everyone else took them. And then the last item, which is kind of cool, is the backpack if you will. And normally in the game, you can only carry 1 artifact. And those are the main hexagon-shaped treasures throughout the dungeon. You can, as soon as you take one of those, that is your artifact. You can't drop it, you can't replace it.
Right.
But with the backpack, you can carry 2, which could be a massive point increase, because if you pick up the 20 and the 25, you're way ahead of the game in terms of the artifacts. There's only 6 or 7 artifacts, I think, total. So some people will be diving down and just getting a 5-point artifact and trying to get out again really quickly, and then someone's going to be pressing their luck trying to go deep and get that 30-pointer.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cool different things on the board, too. A lot of these hidden tokens give you special abilities. Either it's money that you can use, the ability to draw 3 cards.
Yeah, immediate effects. There are some things that you can hold on to and use as extra currency.
Right.
You know, it might give you an extra boot or an extra sword to use in battle.
So let's talk a little bit about the actual cards that can possibly come out. So you'll notice over here on the left-hand side there is a creature. These are things also that you can beat up. Some of these have abilities that have danger on them. So if they show in the tableau of purchasable cards, they will have a lasting effect from round to round until they're defeated.
Yeah, there's a lot of those really quick. We'll take a detour and talk about those. For instance, this kobold has a danger thing. And it says basically, if a dragon attacks, you're going to be pulling 1 extra cube out of the bag as long as he's in this tableau here.
Right.
So it gives people an incentive to get him out of there. And then, for instance, this one says arrive. So when this card is added to the tableau here, it says put 3 dragon cubes back in the bag. So this is going to benefit you by sort of making the dragon a little less aware and a little less powerful. And then there's this one, acquire. When you purchase this card or acquire it, you will immediately get the effect at the bottom. This one, for instance, it's a silver spear, so its immediate effect is you get another attack icon
for that round.
Yeah.
So you're doing all of this from round to round. There's really no rounds. It's just you go around the table. Everyone takes a turn to use their hand
it's not
of
complicated.
cards.
I mean, it's just as complicated as any deck builder. You're using your cards, collecting cards, putting them in discard pile, next person.
So tell them the unique twist on how the game ends, because this is what really makes the push your luck aspect of this game so unique and so fun.
Yeah, so the game ends in a number of different ways. First, someone could come down into the depths, grab an artifact, go back out of the castle. The moment they go out of the castle, it initiates the game.
And that's returning back up here.
Yeah, returning all the way back outside.
So if they're able to grab an artifact, and get all the way back to the starting position, they also get 20 extra victory points, which is huge in the game.
You only get those 20 points if you get back outside of the castle.
Right.
So that will start the end of game, and we'll explain the end of game scenario in a second. The next thing is if anyone gets knocked out. Simply if you die or get knocked out, you also trigger the end of game.
Right.
And that can happen in either the depths or up in the castle.
So you'll see this green dividing line. This is important in just a second when David explains to you what that means, but the depths are below that green line. Anything above is in the castle or in the safe zone.
Exactly. And the first thing you need to know about the depths is that's where all the artifacts are.
Right.
So you have to go down there.
Right.
But once you go down there, you can come back up to the castle. Now, the difference between dying in the depths and in the castle is if you die in the depths, you're dead.
Yeah.
You will not win the game.
You can't score any points.
You cannot score any points.
Right.
Thank you for playing. But if you die in the castle, the townspeople will pull you to safety. They'll only do so, though, if you've collected an artifact.
Right.
Because if you don't have an artifact, you also score 0 points, game over. So basically, the game end and the way that it's triggered incentivizes people. It depends on how you want to play. You could go down there and get a really low point artifact and rush back up to the top and stick everyone else down in the depths and let them die. Or you can press your luck and try to go deep, which is where the higher point artifacts are.
And the other cool aspect is when someone does trigger that end game, there's basically 4 more rounds before the game is flat out over. And how that works is each turn, when it comes back to that player's turn who either died or triggered the end game, the dragon is automatically going to attack. Whether or not a card came out from the tableau to make him attack, he's going to attack every round. And the number of cubes that he's going to draw is wherever he is on this track, plus 1 or 2 or 3, depending upon where it is. So he gets progressively more angry, and everyone's going to be dying at that point.
Exactly. If you're not out, at that point, everyone is rushing to get out.
Right.
And you better have an artifact, because if that happens and you don't have an artifact, there's not going to be a whole lot of time left to get that artifact and get back out of the castle, or even up to the castle. The dragon, by that point, too, oftentimes the dragon is going to be probably around 4 cubes anyway, at least. And then if it reaches the final space, basically everyone who's not out of the castle dies, no matter
Right.
what.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the game. You tally up your points just like any other deck builder, except this is going to have a lot of treasures. You know, all these minor and major secrets, the artifacts, of course. There are some cards in here that have points just on them.
Right.
There's some other cards that have some sort of combo scoring where this card might say you get 2 points for every minor secret you have or something along those lines.
Right.
So...
And there's a lot of cards in there. And surprisingly, there's
Oh.
a lot of different cards in there, too. It's not the same regurgitated artwork, nor is it the same regurgitated cards.
Right, I'm still, as we were setting this up today, I'm still astonished by seeing new cards that we haven't played. And I've played this at least 3 times already.
Yeah.
With 3 different groups. And the artwork is fantastic. I mean, the artwork is definitely right in my wheelhouse because I
Yeah.
love this sort of cartoony, almost animated look to it.
Right.
Tied along with a really, really fantastic game. This game's really pushed my buttons for sure.
Yeah, this is, and we told Lance this last night when he had no idea what it was. This is the deck builder that calls all the other deck builders out of my collection. It's probably the best one. Well, it is the best one I've ever played.
Yeah, I can't imagine, no offense against those other deck builders, but I can't imagine going back to a deck builder that is basically this part of the game down here without this board. I mean, the deck building is really a mechanic towards, you know, achieving that goal of going and getting your artifact and getting out. And the fact that you can go about that in so many different ways. And we didn't even mention this too. There's a whole nother side of the board here
Right.
that has, it's a slightly more advanced setup. Things are spread out a little bit differently. There's a lot more monsters, but it just changes things.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, it's got some replayability, like significant replayability.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things they thought about, and we didn't even mention, when you go through the monsters, we said that you have to have weapons, one per one that you're defeating, but you can actually just run through them if
Right.
you wish, and take the damage from them, which would be 2 damage in this case. So if you're really trying to get out of there and you don't have the weapons, or you haven't collected the weapons during your turn, you can still make a mad dash, but you're probably going to die in a combination of these guys and the dragon.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good
coming after
point.
you.
In the last time I played, I tried a strategy. I'd collected a few cards that actually reduced my Clank. So when I was able to play that card, I could take Clank back off of the Clank space so that when the dragon did attack, theoretically, there were fewer of my cubes in the bag. Now, there is always, obviously, luck of the draw on
Yeah.
that front. But what I was trying to do is allow myself to run through some monsters, and that's where I took my damage and risked it, hoping that the dragon wouldn't kill me.
Do you have any negative aspects of the game?
You know, this isn't a negative aspect yet, but I'll say this about the scoring. My games have had a wide range of score, and I'm not sure exactly yet what that means, but I want to play it a lot more to see what kind of range of score there is. Because a lot of the games I play, I like when a game ends and there's 4 players and we're all within 10% of each other.
Sure.
This one, I've had some games where someone had 120 points and the lowest score was 73 points. And it's not like anyone played significantly worse or different than other people.
What was that spread? How did that spread? Was it from the treasures they collected, or was it lucky from grabbing
It was
some
from the
miners
treasures. What I found was these basic cards, the Mercenary and the Explorer, which are kind of the ones that you would generally take only if there wasn't something more exciting up in the tableau. The player that's won, in fact, a couple games, went really deep on Explorer and Mercenary, which are kind of the vanilla cards, if you will.
So they could get deeper into the dungeon and kill more stuff and get back out?
The movement helped them a lot with the Explorer, because at the end of the game, if you're trying to cycle through and find more of your boots and you're not finding them, and you need to get out of the castle, it becomes tough.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. I played an unorthodox game the last time I played, where I didn't have a lot of boots, but I had 2 different cards that let me teleport to adjacent rooms. So I could ignore the monsters, ignore whatever the requirements were in the tunnels, and just move that way, which was really nice.
The other good part is that everything scores points too, right? I mean, even the money is in a 1-to-1
Yeah, money's
ratio.
1-to-1, which is
So,
uncommon.
yeah, I mean, you're collecting money in a variety of different ways. You can go heavy on the money cards that you can get here. you can go heavy on exploration and try to find as many of these tokens as you can. Typically, rushing down and grabbing a key is a good idea because a lot of the large rooms have the major tokens in them and have some of the higher scoring point systems in them. It's fabulous. I mean, this game, it's fantasy based, which we both like. It has all of the deck building elements that we like. It has that kind of that take that, but it's not really take that. It's more of that that punishing portion of the game that is fun to participate in, but it's not coming from someone else.
Right, it's
but it
punishing.
is a little bit instigating from going in and grabbing stuff and then saying, "Oh, you guys are all really deep. Bye bye."
Right, it's got that overall instigator type thing where,
Yeah.
and that's what I've liked to try to do is try to get out and force everyone to try to scramble after.
Yeah.
I've failed at trying that strategy, but that would be my goal, is to do that. One other thing that I definitely want to point out, when we were talking about the cards, we kind of glossed over this, but there are a few different kinds of cards in addition to the blue cards, which are basically the items and companions that you might add to your group. The monsters, which are red, when you defeat those, they don't go into your hand like they might in other deck builders. They just get discarded. So you're really just acquiring the blue cards. And then the purple cards, which are interesting, when you buy those, you don't acquire those. You just simply get to do what those cards say. And oftentimes, those are an instant and immediate effect that's really beneficial.
Yeah.
When those come out and it gives you a free boot or two on that turn, it can really make the difference of a bad turn and a good turn.
Yeah, just a fantastic, fantastic deck builder. Probably the best one I've ever played. That's Clank, guys.
It
Go
is.
check it out. I have no idea when this one's hitting the market.
I don't. It was in limited release at Gen Con, and they blew out just like a lot of their games at the Renegade
Yeah,
booth.
and I know it's on the hot list. That's why we wanted to get it recorded and out to you guys to take a look at it as soon as possible. But please check this one out. We're not kidding when we say this is probably the best deck building game we've ever played. So anyway, thanks again, guys. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Once again, I am Jeremy Salinas.
I'm David Waybright.
And we'll see you guys again next time.
Bye-bye.